Yeah, so why don't we talk a little bit about the summit? And I'd love to just
Awesome.
ask you some questions and
Mhm.
kind of hear your heart for this and some of the history and story behind it, and go from there. So I would actually love both, because I think it would be interesting to people who are listening, but also to me personally, because I don't know this story. Uh, you've founded this teen summit for parents.
Mhm.
How did that come about? How did that kind of get laid on your heart? What was that like in the early years? How many times has this happened so far?
So this is our third for teens, and then we run other summits for other age groups as well.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
so tell me about that kind of initial journey of saying, I think I'd like to do a summit for parents of teens. What was that like?
Yeah. So I am lucky enough to get to work in a space where I interact with a lot of parents. And my whole goal is to simplify parenting life so that parents enjoy more calm and more confidence and more joy, that we get to like actually enjoy parenting. And so we talk about systems and simplifying and personal development and parenting and all these things. And I found that there were two specific age groups that parents seem to have the most questions about: what is going on with my kid right now? Like,
Wait, I
and
bet I can guess one of them.
I bet you can guess. What were they?
Was one of them the teenage years?
One of them was the teenage years. Yes. And interestingly enough, the other is the toddler years. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, the spectrum. And I think it is interesting because developmentally we go through big changes at those points. The brain is going through massive changes and there's a lot happening. And so it makes sense as a parent who's just seeing this kid, and then things change and you're like, what's going on? Is this normal? Is this like, is there something wrong here? How do I help this? So it made sense, but I kept hearing the same types of questions over and over and over. And I thought, this is something that parents need, right?
Yeah.
We need experts and just people who have gone before to give a little insight to help us know what's happening. How can I help my child? We need connection with other parents of teens so that we can say, no, you're not alone. No, you're not going crazy. Yes, it's hard. What are you doing about it? All those kinds of just sharing of ideas and supporting one another and things like that. And a chance to kind of have a parenting reset. I don't know if you've experienced that in any area of life, but when you have kind of a really heavy focus for just a few days, like this summit provides, it's almost like this, like, oh, it's like a reset. I can do this. I
Yes.
can do this,
Yep.
right? And so I found this summit. I actually participated in one as a participant for an entirely different topic, and I thought, oh, this would be so cool for parents. And
You're
I
like, I
wasn't
could do
seeing
this.
I could do this. Yeah. And
Easy.
I wasn't seeing exactly the way that we function, the way that I've created it. I wasn't seeing that outside. And so I thought, I'm just gonna make this. I'm gonna make this happen. And so that's where it started. I have been able to work with teens for a really long time, both in volunteer positions and as a teacher. My degree is in health education. So I taught high school health, coached teens, tutoring teens, all those kinds of things. So I love this age group, and it has turned out to be one of my favorite events of the entire year, getting to really just feed into these families, to the parents and both their teens with this event.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. This is my first year presenting, being one of the speakers. So I'm loving that I get to be part of it. But one of the things that I love about the entire event is the diversity of voices and topics and experiences is huge. This
Yeah.
isn't, you just gathered one or two of your closest friends and we're getting, life coaches for teenagers, we're getting counselors, we're getting teachers, we're getting parents, we're putting them all
Doctors,
together. We're
psychologists.
gonna Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
we're gonna present all sorts of different relevant topics that are so good for parents of teenagers, and then the parents get to kind of pick and choose. Are you going to watch everything? Are you going to just pull from the ones that you need? Or um, there is there is something for everyone at this summit, and it's a big deal. I can imagine how time consuming it must be to to gather all of these speakers and teachers and organize the content and all of that. But I
Yeah,
think
it's
it ends
worth
up
it.
really
And
worth it.
I put in a lot of time and research and thought into who I even invite to be a speaker. So thank you. We are excited for your presentation about leadership. And like you said, we really try and craft it so that we bring in people who this is their thing, right? Like this is what they do. They know it inside and out. They've worked with a lot of teens and a lot of parents, a lot of families, and it's not their first rodeo.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's
They all
important.
have a huge heart for their work, for their message. They're doing it for free. Like there's an opportunity for them to earn a commission, but most of us are just doing this for free because it's a message that is so important to us in reaching families. So I just feel honored to, like you mentioned, to get to work with such an incredible variety and caliber of speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I am too. It's very great. So if you're a parent coming to this thing for the very first time and you're seeing all these speakers, all these sessions, all these different options and way to goes and things that you can be doing to participate in this summit, where should they kind of start? How do they start filtering through what's most important? What do they need to be doing to make sure they're getting the best experience from the Teen Summit?
That is a great question. And so what I would do in the first welcome email after you do your free registration for the event, you'll get a welcome email and there is a PDF included with all of the speakers, their names and their topics. And so I would look at that and say, okay, which of these, just go through and even print it out so that you know, and then just circle, I want to make sure I see this one. I want to make sure I see this one. I want to make sure I see that one. The way it works is that each day during the summit, we have 5 presentations that are available for free for 24 hours. So you just want to make sure sometime during that day, you set aside some time to watch that presentation. If there is like, oh my gosh, every single one I'm circling and I want to watch this again and again and again, that's what the all access pass is for, right?
Sure.
So people can purchase and have lifetime access to all of these presentations plus bonuses. But if you are just getting in, that's what I would do. Print that schedule out, look at the ones that appeal to you, that you're like, I wonder about this, or this has been a problem, or my teen's struggling with this. About half of our presentations are actually geared for your teen as well. So invite your teen to watch with you on those.
I love that. Even that's kind of a unique feature. Usually,
Yeah.
events like this are either for teenagers or for parents of teenagers. So to be able to do something that includes both is very cool. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to during this year's summit? Whether it's a certain speaker or topic or event, what is it that you're like, oh, this is getting me excited. I can't wait for the parents, can't wait for the teenagers to experience this.
Yeah. So I love every topic that we have. Otherwise I wouldn't include it. So that's an especially hard question for me, but I will just name a couple because I know you don't want to hear all 20 right now. But one that is new this year is Kriya Lenzian, and she's talking about how to have impactful discussions around drugs and alcohol. We've seen,
Nice.
and this is almost newer, right, is the vaping trend amongst the
Yes.
teenage groups. And so I think that's going to be a really helpful conversation for families to have. We also have another new speaker, Ash Brandon, is talking about healthy gaming. I love that one because I feel like gaming gets this, I don't know, a lot of parents feel like gaming is like the devil or something. Like it's like all negative. There's nothing good. And I love the way Ash presents it. It's very like Ash shares the research behind it, shares a framework for healthy gaming and how this can be a beneficial thing for the entire family. Because a lot of our teens love gaming, right? And so that becomes a contention point between parents. So I think that's going
Right.
to be a great one. Heather Fraser is a favorite. She is talking this year about how do I know if I'm a good parent. So that's going to be great for parents who are kind of in that struggling place where your things are just off the rocks and you're not feeling solid in what you're doing and how you're showing up every day. And I could go on and on. We've got
Yeah.
some conversations about sexual integrity and really building connection. DJ Johnson is talking about how to be connected with our teens, even when we need to discipline and things like that. So tons of great topics.
It does sound great. One of the ones that you mentioned that I remember seeing in the promotional materials was talking about the idea of parents not thinking that they're good parents. And I was a youth pastor for 10 years. Now I'm a life coach for teenagers. And that narrative runs deep in a lot of parents. They think I'm not a good parent. I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good dad. And they feel like they have the proof, like, look at my son, look at my daughter, that's all my fault. And to be able to take a step back and say, yeah, actually, your teenager's not bad and you're not a bad parent. Let's talk about, how to work through some things that maybe you're experiencing, but you're not a bad parent. I think there's very, very few bad parents out there. And
especially
yeah,
the kinds of parents that show up to these kinds of events, the kinds of parent, if you're listening to this, that's not you, right?
yeah,
So I think though that is a fundamental human question that at some level we all have to get to the root to, is like, am I enough? Right? Am I good enough? Even though I'm flawed, even though I make all these mistakes, even though the people around me sometimes don't respond well to me, all those kinds of things. So it's an important thing for us to figure out for ourselves, because then we're also modeling it and passing on that mindset and that belief structure to our teens, and they have to figure that out for themselves too.
yeah, you're right. So the summit is free. I love that it's free. There are upgrades available if you want to get, more content to keep it longer or experience some other things. But the summit is free. So what would a parent or teenager have to do to make sure that they're getting registered? And do you want to remind us of what the dates are as well for the summit?
For sure. So it's happening March 7th through 10th, 2023. And the easiest way, Arthur will have a link for you, right? Yes.
True.
So
Yep.
there's going to be a registration page. He has that link for you. You'll just go to that page and say, grab my free ticket, click on that button, put in your email so we know where to send all of the communications, the links to see all the presentations. We have swag bag, like free gifts from our speakers, all those kinds of things. So you can get hooked in just by going to that link and signing up.
Perfect. So wherever you're watching or listening to this, we'll make sure that we put a registration link there so that you can get signed up, and it's right around the corner, just a few days away. So I'm excited. I can tell you're excited, and I think it's going to do a lot of good for a lot of parents and a lot of teenagers. So Marielle Melling,
Yes.
did I get that? Marielle, thank you so much for your time today, and even more than that, thank you for all the time you're putting into such an important summit for teenagers and for their parents.